Hi, this is Krishna Iyer with the Iyer Think Tank in Delray Beach. This short podcast is again on the Iran war. We are on March 16th, 2026. This is day 18 of day 17 of the Iran war. And we have a few articles to discuss. The first is actually a article from the Daily Beast. It says that I know why Trump and his goons are toast. The president's war could sink his chances in November, one political strategist warned. Um, so basically, in summary, this is a war. Donald Trump's war on Iran could deliver the lethal blow that sinks Republicans in the midterm. A political strategist warned. Steve Schmidt, co-founder of the Lincoln Project and the Save America movement, cautioned that the tidal wave of epic proportions is coming for the president's party on the Daily Beast podcast. We're not winning this war, Schmidt told host Joanna Coles, and that is unpardonable in the United States. Top intelligence officials have repeatedly told the president, 79, that the Iranian regime shows no signs of backing down following Trump's surprise attacks on the country in coordination with Israel on February 28th. Despite that, the president has publicly declared victory in the war he started, while also flip-flopping with it on its length and outcome. As of publication, at least 13 American service members have been killed and 140 others injured. Schmidt, a former advisor to George Bush, said Trump's indecisiveness portrays a weakness that could be the final blow to Republicans in November. Before the war started, the midterms were already a political disaster of immense dimensions. Immense dimensions for MAGA and for Trump, Schmidt said. They're going to lose the House majority. They're likely going to lose the Senate majority. They're going to lose the governor's races. They're going to lose up and down the ballot all over the country. Since Trump regained power, Democrats have flipped 28 traditionally safe Republican state legislative seats across the country since November 2024, according to Democratic Legislative Campaign Committee. Republicans have flipped none. There are a lot of Democrat candidates and a lot of places who are going to win, and that's before the war, Schmidt said. You can tell through the collapse of his polling numbers and their further deterioration and the spill within the MAGA party on this line that this is terrible for Trump. The polls have shown widespread rejection of Trump's war in Iran among the American public. Notably, even members of Trump's own party don't seem wholly behind him. CNN polls found that nearly a fifth, or 19%, of Republican respondents said the conflict would make the U.S. less safe. Right-wing leaders and influencers, including Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, and Joe Rogan, have condemned the conflict and questioned the motives. It just seems so insane based on what he ran on, Joe Rogan said in his podcast, which averages a reported 11 million views per episode. He ran on no more wars, and these stupid, senseless wars. And then we have one that we can't even really clearly define why he did it, the podcaster said. Schmidt also pointed to the mounting failures in the war over the week's span. Military analysts have reportedly found that the U.S. has behind a strike on a primary school in Iran that officials said killed 168 people, including 110 children, amounting to the most catastrophic military error in decades. Actually, that's 150 children that were killed in that strike, so that's a misprint, but that is correct. The war is a disaster, Schmidt said. We talked about some of the moral dimensions of it, some of the mistakes, if you want to call them that have been made, the obliteration of young schoolgirls in it. Schmidt added, he doesn't look strong here. He looks incompetent. He looks weak, and he's going to look weaker as this all unfurls out. The Daily Beast has reached out to the White House for comment. So yes, you can see that Donald Trump, he has he has been eviscerated for his clueless response on the Iran war. He has, basically he has done a poor job. I know why Trump and his goons are toast is pretty accurate. I mean, the Democrats are, definitely going to give him a run for his money on this, this midterm election. He ran on the basis of no wars. He promised everyone no wars, and he has, engaged in two wars. He has engaged in two wars, actually three wars if you consider Cuba as a humanitarian blockade. So he has a war in Cuba. He engaged in a military intervention in Venezuela, and now he's engaged in a vicious anti-Muslim campaign in Iran. And I think that's something that everyone should know. I mean, he is a racist Christian, anti-Muslim witchcraft, nuclear seeking or nuclear searching gangster. I mean, he's a witchcraft Christian gangster and an anti-Muslim butcher. And that is why he is in Iran, and that is what he is doing in Iran. It is, a testament to the fact that he is incompetent to lead. I mean, I agree with all of that. He is incompetent. He's weak. He has not ever served in the military, and he's acting as if, he's a big man. He's a big shot. And that's, a poor, it's really just, a self-proclaimed bombast. And we all know that Donald Trump is a self-proclaimed bombast. He just looks at himself and thinks that, he can handle, anything. He can, be a neurosurgeon if he wanted. He could, do neurosurgery on a VIP, from England. That is his attitude. That is his way. He thinks that he can do anything, in the world. And he is just an incompetent, racist, Christian, ignorant gangster. And he has showed his, huge gaps in knowledge and his huge inexperience in military intervention with this war in Iran. It is, good for the Democrats, certainly, because he has showed such a huge gap in the ability to, properly and, with, a normal appearance handle this war in Iran. He has, fumbled like a inexperienced amateur in this war in Iran. And that is why he goes down as, just an anti-Muslim butcher. He just wants to slaughter Muslims. That's his goal. Oil prices have tumbled. He's sitting here, wanting to slaughter Muslims. That's the only goal we have in this war. I mean, it didn't, help any economical things. It has dropped oil prices. He is now, why did we go to this war? Well, right now, as it stands, we went because we wanted to slaughter Muslims, because the economy is tanking. The oil prices are up, inflation is up, and there's no real end game in this war. And he's the one responsible for it. So he is, certainly displaying an incompetent amateur type appearance in this war. And, that is what he goes down as. He is, an anti-Muslim butcher, a racist Christian witchcraft, nuclear hunting, anti-Muslim butcher, and an inexperienced amateur who has no end in sight and has no, experience in wars, and is showing it, with beauty here for the Democrats. So there's a second article I'm going to talk about. Trump was eviscerated for a clueless response on the Iran war. He's just stupid. This is from AL. President Donald Trump raised eyebrows on social media after he gave a contradictory response to a reporter asking whether the conflict with Iran is ending. Trump was challenged Monday on saying that the war was very complete, with Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth claiming the country operations were just beginning. Asked which assessment was accurate, Trump said, "I think you could say both." Just having a problem with my my computer here. So yes, actually, this article is a truncated one, and so this one, this one is, that's pretty much it. He's hedging, and he has, on multiple occasions, he has stated that he's ending this war, and then he says he's, going to go forward. He's ending this war. He has more plans. He's ending this war, and then he has, additional things he's going to do. Now, the Strait of Hormuz is not open, so he's ending this war, and he's, going to try to open the Strait of Hormuz. He's begging his allies, and he's, actually, he's not begging his allies. He's threatening NATO. He's threatening NATO action, and, it'll be terrible for, European powers if they don't help him in this war. He's like, he's a gangster. He's the head of a gangster coalition of Christians that are, causing anti-Muslim butchery in Iran. And that is, what he goes down as. He's an anti-Muslim butcher that's trying to, threaten his, friend Christians in, helping him in this war. And, like I said, this is not a conflict that I would get involved in if I were not the one who started it. I mean, the U.S. has illegally occupied this war. They have illegally launched a crime of aggression against Iran, and they have also committed many crimes against humanity in Iran. And so, you're joining and complicit in such crimes means that, you go down for that. And, that's something that I would, think much in advance about that before you just, lay down your arms and respond to idle threats by Donald Trump, because he has threats for anything. He has extortion. He is an extortionist. He will threaten, at any notice for any reason. And, it may not even be legally possible for him to threaten like this. I mean, what's the legal justification for him to threaten the allies that, they have to send people to NATO? What are the consequences of this? He's laid, open-ended, again, another open-ended threat by Trump, who is a coercive bully, a racist coercive bully. And, that's what he's doing. He's threatening the Europeans of, conflict. He's threatening the Europeans. The specific words were, this is not going to be good if you don't, help me. I will, tell you exactly what he said. Donald Trump said, with respect to the Strait of Hormuz, that with respect to the Strait of Hormuz, it'll be bad. It'll be bad result. His statement was specifically, all right, it will be very bad for the future of the Allies if they do not send warships to help end the Iranian blockade of the crucial Strait of Hormuz shipping route. With oil prices climbing and fears mounting in the long-term economic fallout, Trump has threatened to delay his China summit if President Xi Jinping doesn't help. Obviously, this is, a problematic situation. I mean, first of all, what is the threat? Very bad. That's an open-ended threat. He does this all the time. He is a coercive bully. I mean, if you don't, he did this war. He's the big general of the U.S. Army. He's the big commander-in-chief of the U.S. Army. He needs to get himself out of this mess. I mean, he needs to force, he needs to show his ability to get out of this mess. He is not to force his allies, with NATO and his, enemies with, his adversaries with China to help him, get out of this war. I mean, that is just not, one of the reasons why he should be, he should be allowed to do all of this. He said the U.S. would remember if NATO counterparts didn't help. So what if they remember it? I mean, Donald Trump, so what if they remember it? It's your war. It's not their war. They didn't ask for it. They have condemned it. Macron has condemned this international war of aggression by the United States. Britain has distanced itself quite, far from this war of aggression by the United States. So these requests to force the allies to send ships and to help you in the Strait of Hormuz is not grounded in reality. It is a delusional request. They must say no to this. They must say that you are just a coercive bully, and we're not listening. I mean, you did this on your own. You get out of this war. This is your little baby. This is your little anti-Muslim program. You get out of it. You're the anti-Muslim racist. You get out of this war. Okay, that's what ultimately should be said to him. And let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Let's see how he handles this situation. That's ultimately it. So the next article that we're going to talk about is Trump administration threatens news outlets over critical coverage of Iran. The administration of President Donald Trump has warned that news outlets could have their broadcasting licenses revoked over critical reporting on the war against Iran, accusing the media of distortions. FCC Chairman Brendan Carr said in a social post on Saturday that broadcasters must operate in the public interest or else lose their licenses. Broadcasts are running hoaxes and news distortions, also known as fake news, have a chance to correct course before the license renewals come up, Carr said. The warning was the latest apparent threat by Carr, who has repeatedly attracted scrutiny for statements that appear to pressure broadcasters to conform with Trump priorities. Last year, for instance, Carr called on channel ABC and its distributors to find ways to change conduct, to take action on comedian Jimmy Kimmel, whose late night show had been critical of the president. We can do this easy or we can do this the hard way, Carr said of Kimmel on a podcast. ABC temporarily suspended Kimmel's show in the aftermath of those comments. Carr's latest statement prompted swift condemnation from politicians and free speech advocates who likened his remarks to censorship. This is a clear directive to provide positive war coverages, or else the licenses may not be renewed, Senator Brian Schatz of Hawaii wrote. This is worse than the comedian stuff, and by a lot. The stakes are much higher. He's not talking about late night shows. He's talking about how the war is covered. Aaron Terr, the director of public advocacy at the Foundation of Individual Rights and Expression, likewise denounced Carr for seeking a silence to negative war coverage. The First Amendment doesn't allow the government to censor information about the war it's waging, Terr said. Trump denounces war coverage. Carr's latest statement came in response to a social media post from Trump accusing the fake news media of reporting that U.S. refueling planes had been struck in an Iranian attack in Saudi Arabia. The base was hit a few days ago, but the planes were not struck or destroyed, Trump said on a Truth Social post. 4 of the 5 had virtually no damage and are already back in service. He added that reporting to the contrary was intentionally misleading. Low-life papers and media actually want us to lose the war, he wrote. The president and his allies have faced accusations that they use the power of the state to penalize dissent and critical news coverage, raising concerns about press freedom. Polling shows that the war launched by the U.S. and Israel on February 28th is largely unpopular in the United States. A recent Quinnipiac poll found that 53% of voters opposed military action against Iran, including 89% of Democrats and 60% of independents. The war has been condemned by legal experts as a clear violation of international law, which prohibits unprovoked attacks. Trump has offered shifting rationales as to why he believes Iran posed an imminent threat to U.S. security. He has also asserted the war is proceeding successfully despite ongoing Iranian attacks on U.S. forces across the region and the shutdown of the Strait of Hormuz, a key trade artery. We've won, let me tell you, we've won, he told a rally in Kentucky. In the first hour, it was over. His administration, meanwhile, has blamed the news media for turning public opinion against the war. Yet some in this crew, in the process, can't just stop. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth said during a briefing on Friday, a former Fox News host, Hegseth called for patriotic reporters to write more optimistic headlines instead. He denounced TV banners that read, for example, Mideast war intensifies. What should the banner read instead, how about increasingly desperate? Because they are. They know it, and so do you. If it can be admitted, Hegseth said. He criticized the news outlet CNN in particular for a report asserting that the Trump administration had underestimated Iran closing the Strait of Hormuz. Hegseth quipped that he hoped a prospective deal would place CNN under the control of David Ellison, son of close Trump ally and tech executive Larry Ellison. The sooner Dave Ellison takes over that network, the better, he added. So you can see this is a fascist group of racist gangsters. Okay, Hegseth and Trump are behaving like racist gangsters. All right, they want Christian media. They want Christian evangelical media that is an anti-Muslim media in support of this war. You know, they want only positive statements to be made about the gains the United States have done. They do not want it covered as a crime of aggression. They don't want scholarly activity in America. This is not European people. These are racist American, gangsters, racist American Christian nuclear thugs that, only want what they say. They want to be kings like Putin. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that Putin would come up with. Putin would advocate to have only positive coverage about himself. And that's all Trump wants. Trump wants only positive coverage about himself. He is, losing this war, as he is losing control of his administration. He is losing control of, all of the things that a president, is supposed to be, in control of. He is losing control of his poll numbers. His poll numbers have, plummeted. And now he's blaming the media for all of this stuff, for his shortcomings, for his inability to fight a war, for his inability to manage a war, or for his inability to get help if he can't manage a war. Before this war started, Donald Trump should have sought assistance from people. He failed. Before this war started, he should have been much more careful about, going into a military adventure. He failed. And now he's blaming the news outlets for reporting what they report. So, whether Donald Trump censors the U.S. media, we're not really fans of the U.S. media. To be frank, I don't really respect the U.S. media. They're hypocrites. They only speak positive about the administration. But, there's, some amount of, when there's, complete negativity, then they start speaking negative. But for the most part, they're pro-Trump. I mean, the U.S. media is pro-Trump. So for him to come down on them and to be more pro-Trump means that we're going to just have to look at other medias. There's plenty of other media out there. There are medias that are independent that do not require U.S. licenses. They are, all over the place. There's, Al Jazeera News. There's, Dubai News. There's all sorts of British papers that, cover this conflict without needing U.S. licenses or U.S. coddling to, get the job done. CNN, ABC, these puppets of the United States, if their licenses are revoked, it's not going to really affect the coverage on the war. However, I think Donald Trump is breaking international law by censoring the press. I really do. I think he's, committing a crime against, people by, censoring the press. He's, he's just basically censoring. He's committing censorship. He's promoting right-wing fascist viewpoints in favor, as the favor. He wants right-wing fascist viewpoints. He wants the war in Iran as positive. He's a hardliner against Muslims. He wants that in the media. He wants, he's a racist Christian, gangster on a mission for nuclear witchcraft in Iran. And he wants that on the, he wants to, say that he's a great guy and, he's doing a liberation struggle for the United States. There's a security threat by Iran. Donald Trump, explain the security threat, Mr. Trump. Explain it in a press conference. I challenge you to explain the wars, caused in a press conference. Clarify all these issues that people have with your war in Iran, because everyone has the same issue. You have no, end game, you have no rationale, and you have no reason to have done it. And so this war of choice is your own vicious anti-Muslim war, in my opinion. And that is what I think is the general opinion. It is just Donald Trump's own anti-Muslim war. So continuing on, so that's, basically, that is basically the summary of that. You have the the Trump administration denouncing the war coverage. Personally, I believe the war coverage has been excellent. I believe the U.S. media, for the first time, has actually criticized the United States for, a campaign against against the Iranian people. And I believe this is an unjust war of aggression against the Islamic Republic of Iran. And for that reason, I believe the U.S. media has been excellent. I suggest they continue in their path, and I suggest they fight this licensing thing, because this licensing thing is against international law. It is against rules, and it's promoting a fascist state similar to Hitler and Putin. Donald Trump wants to bring America to Hitler's approach, where he disseminates the news, and the news is very secretive, and only the Third Reich or the Donald Reich decides what is presented in the news. And that's what he wants through this media oversight. So that's basically the third thing. The final place is Israel attacks central Beirut in escalation on a deadly assault in Lebanon. This is another front for the war. We have discussed this. This is a second front for the Iran war. Israel and Lebanon have started an escalation of a military campaign that have killed nearly 700 people. Israel carried out a new wave of attacks on the Lebanese capital, Beirut, sending enormous planes of black smoke billowing up over parts of the city. The latest Israeli strikes on Thursday targeted central Beirut's Bashura neighborhood, as well as the southern suburbs. The Israeli military also issued a warning to evacuate a building in Zukak El Blat, another area in the city's center. The targeting of central Beirut marks an escalation in a week and a half of intensified Israeli bombing across Lebanon, which has killed at least 687 people and wounded more than 1,500, according to Lebanese Ministry of Public Health. Lebanese authorities said more than 800,000 people have been forcibly displaced due to the violence, which began on March 2nd after Hezbollah launched rockets towards Israeli territory following the start of the United States-Israeli war on Iran. The Israeli military has launched a widespread serial and ground assault against its northern neighbor, describing the offensive as a campaign against Hezbollah. The Lebanese armed group has responded with waves of rocket strikes against Israel, including a large salvo that was launched on Wednesday evening in coordination with Iran. The UN and humanitarian groups said Lebanese civilians, including hundreds of thousands who have sought emergency shelter after being forced out of their homes, are bearing the brunt of this escalating conflict. Many of those who were forced to flee southern Lebanon and Beirut, southern suburbs, an area known as Dahia, have been staying in schools turned shelters with relatives on tents along the waterfront. At least 12 people were killed in an Israeli double tap strike earlier on Thursday in the seafront area of Remlet al-Baida, where displaced families were sleeping in tents. Separately, Lebanon National News Agency also reported that an Israeli drone strike on a Lebanese university in Hadath near Beirut killed 2 academics. Al Jazeera's Bernard Smith said the country is grappling with a worsening displacement crisis, with 90% of the government shelters full. People who are in those shelters have already seen their homes blown up, particularly those from the southern suburbs and southern Lebanon, so they don't have homes to go back to, Smith said from the capital. Many people are day laborers and can't earn a salary, so people are without money, without home to go back to, and his campaign of Israel's and the fight between Israel and Hezbollah shows no indication of ending soon. So you can see that there's been an escalation. There has been an escalation in Lebanon. Basically, the escalation is because the Israeli government, in response to a unprovoked attack by Hezbollah, has decided to wage war against Hezbollah, and civilians are being slaughtered in Beirut. It's a standard theme. This is the standard theme. The Israeli government standardly slaughters civilians in their wars, and that's the standard theme. But there's a deeper issue here, and that's something I want to bring up, and that's something I thought about, but I don't know how significant it is. But the fact that Joseph Aoun, the president of Lebanon, is against Hezbollah, and he is a Christian, makes me think he is maybe complicit in the crimes that Israel is committing against, his people there. He is against Hezbollah. He is against this war, but he is not doing anything to try to help the situation. He is not, doing anything to stop Hezbollah. He is not doing anything to stop Israel. He is just sitting there watching his civilians get slaughtered. And these are mainly Muslim civilians. So the question is this, just a general anti-Muslim campaign? Is this a campaign to slaughter as many Muslims as possible in Iran and Lebanon and, leave, destroy the land, slaughter Muslims and leave? That's the question. I mean, you have to wonder that because Joseph Aoun is a Christian and the, majority of Lebanese are Muslims. So I think, the presence of a Christian in the presidency associated with Hezbollah, a reactionary group that is, a fundamentalist group, as well as Lebanese civilians who are predominantly Muslims, is a breeding ground for massacring Muslims. That is my take on it. The presence of a Christian in power in Lebanon who is neglectful, who is neglectful in this war. He has not done anything to try to help the situation, and the massacre of civilian Muslims is just, standard. That's a standard thing that's going to happen. So I don't really see, anything that can be done here. I think that, the bottom line is that, of course, Israel should slow down. I mean, Israel should slow down in its massacre of civilians. That's a given. We always say that, but, that's not something that is most likely going to happen because of, what's happening. But, in the more important than that is that, there needs to be a basis on which, these, governments that are set up do not set up a situation in which, a ruler like a Christian, like Joseph Aoun, can, rule over, hundreds of millions of Muslims. I mean, that's, that doesn't make sense to me. I mean, that doesn't make sense to me. I don't think there's 100 million people, but, a good number of Muslims. The population of Lebanon is, the population of Lebanon is 6 million people, okay? Population of Lebanon is 6 million people. So, what a Christian ruling over 6 million people, I don't see him as, helping the situation. And I don't think, I think it sets up the same thing that it set up with the Chinese Buddhists, that Chiang Kai-shek, placed there by the United States government, resulted in the murder of millions of Buddhists in China, millions of Buddhist peasants in China. And that is the reason why, you can have, a person set them up. All you need to do is go to a state like Israel, which is a thug state. It doesn't have like a real reputation in the world as, open-minded and open and fair. So, you just find a thug state that's willing to, enact your thing. It's a modification of the Chiang Kai-shek thing. You have a direct person, mass murdering, people of color in the country. You have a, mass murder of Buddhists in China. And similarly, you have a mass murder of Muslims in Lebanon. It's a similar kind of thing. I think that it's, you're just using Israel as a way to, to cause the casualties, and you're not doing anything. Okay, Joseph Aoun should be going to the United Nations. Joseph Aoun should be going to the UN and governing bodies and talking to them about this Israeli conflict, because that's the way to sit back and just watch your civilians get slaughtered and blame Hezbollah is not going to fix the problem. It's not going to fix the civilians that are being caught up in this conflict that shouldn't be caught up in a conflict, because this is another front in the Iran war, and civilians are being slaughtered, which is crimes against humanity. Israel is committing crimes against humanity against the Lebanese people, and there is no one is doing anything to fix this problem. So the casualties will go up. I don't anticipate the casualties stopping in the thousands. I would say they go up into the 10,000s, 20,000 if this Iran war continues forever, because Israel has no interest in stopping it, and there are no crimes against humanity, and Joseph Aoun is sitting passively without asking the UN to intervene here, or he's not really doing anything as far as I can tell in trying to fix this situation, or I have not read such things about it. So the first thing that needs to be done is the UN needs to get involved in this conflict and slow it down and slow down the crimes against humanity, because the crimes against humanity which Israel is committing is obviously the reason why the population is being exterminated, basically. The civilians are being slaughtered because the crimes against humanity are being committed against them. And, that's, something that needs to be, fixed and looked at. So, in summary, I looked at 4 articles, 2 on Donald Trump, the most important of which is Trump, and I know why Trump and his goons are toast. His war of aggression against Iran has been universally condemned across the world. It has also been universally condemned in the American public. He has displayed, amateur behavior. He has displayed a novice ability to run this war, and he has failed in this war. He is an amateur. He is a failure. He has failed in this war. He is a novice, and he has not demonstrated, the ability, that his forefathers may have demonstrated that he was trying to model, like Eisenhower and all of the other presidents that have tried to wage war in Iran or do things in Iran. Eisenhower's intervention in Iran was much less bloody than this one, and that's a fact. That's a fact. And he tried to imitate Eisenhower. He failed miserably in this thing. He's a novice and amateur, and he looks like a novice and amateur, as a commander in chief. And the fact that he's never served a day in the military and got a military deferment for bone spurs is just another example of that. The second article we looked at was him trying to stop licenses, threatening critical coverage over the Strait of Hormuz. Again, another example of just a poor example of trying to force fascism in the United States. United States has drifted towards fascism over the last several years, much more so than Britain and France. And they have, delved into fascism, quite closely. But, him asking censorship in this war is against international law. I have hundreds of books are written about American censorship. Second Front Propaganda, Censorship in the Gulf War by John MacArthur is an excellent book. It describes the censorship during the Gulf War. And, we only hear the positive things that the U.S. does, not the negative things and the war crimes and the crimes against humanity they commit. But they are available on Al Jazeera and other networks, Xinhua, South China Morning Post. Many of the papers in Asia, many of the Vietnamese papers cover it. South American papers will cover, honestly, the media in the war. So it's not that the U.S. has really, control over it. It's just that Donald Trump wants U.S. media supporting him, which is, against international law, I believe. And then we talked about the Trump threatening the NATO allies over the Strait of Hormuz. Again, I suggest the British and French governments do not help America in this campaign against the Iranian people. This is an anti-Muslim war of choice by Donald Trump, and him threatening NATO allies over the Strait of Hormuz is not it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. There's no reason for these people to help the United States in this war aggression against Iran. This is Donald Trump's, thing. He's a big general, right? He's a big commander in chief. He needs to handle this on his own, and he needs to show the resolve that's necessary to get out of this conflict and not just beg his friends, his Christian friends for, help, or, even threaten his Christian friends and coerce his Christian friends with nuclear weapons for help. That's not, that is not acceptable. And then finally, we did the Israel's attacks in central Beirut and escalation and its deadly assault on Lebanon. More crimes against humanity being committed against the Lebanese people by the Israeli government. I hope you enjoyed it. It's Krishna Iyer, the Iyer Think Tank. I will put the articles in the description of the podcast. I also hope you can comment on anything that you hear or, see that you don't like. I am, much up to, modifying or understanding what other people think. And so I hope that you can give me some sort of comment if you have the time and you enjoy watching it, because I do see, many people watch these podcasts, but I never get any comments. So I hope you can, give me some sort of, comments on what I say. Hope you enjoyed it. Krishna Iyer at the Iyer Think Tank in Delray Beach. Have a great day.